What's good, everybody? It's Batman, and we're over here going to be doing an art video of my own this time. And we're going to be covering a character in the Akatsuki called Zetsu. So, in my video, which I will put down in the description down below if you guys have not seen it, of me raking the Akatsuki, I kind of did Zetsu dirty, in my opinion. And I didn't, do a lot of homework and background knowledge on him as in comparison I did for all the other characters. And the main reason why I kind of backed off on him and I didn't really want to put an actual placement for him in the Akatsuki was really due to how much of a complex character he is. And mainly throughout the show, he's not really known for as a combat type, more of like a support and intel type guy. But then again, when you actually really analyze the character and you kind of like reread the manga or rewatch some of the anime that covers him and everything, he can be used as a combat type when it's needed, I guess you can say. So he's a very interesting character, and overall he seems kind of like an all-around type character. You know what I mean? To where he can practically do it all when it really comes down to it. And I don't know, he's really interesting. You know, like I said, he's a very complex character. Really interesting and unique when it comes to scaling and whatnot. And I feel like it'd be kind of worth, and to at least do him some justice, and to really give some knowledge about him, what he is, a little bit of a history class about him, go over his feats, his abilities, data book statements, and overall what he has done in Naruto itself, as performance-wise and feats alone. And in conclusion, to basically summarize of how strong I think he is as a character, and if I had to put him, ranking-wise in the Akatsuki, then my answer would be obviously given towards the end of the video. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with this guy. So we're going to start it off with, the background information, and it's going to be not too long or anything. I'll briefly kind of summarize them, and then we'll get into, his powers and abilities, feats-wise, data book statements, yada yada, you name it. So, hope you guys really enjoy the video, and I'm excited to share this with you, and let's do it. So, white Zetsu. So, as we all know, there's technically two types of Zetsus. So, there's black Zetsu and then there's white Zetsu. They can either be combined together and work together, or they can detach and be separate and go on about their life. So, we're going to cover both of them. So, white Zetsu was originally one of the victims of Kage, which was during the Isuki's. Didn't even say the name right. Infinite Tsukiyomi, though, who was transformed after being tethered to the God Tree over the course of many years and ultimately stored within the demonic statue of the Outer Path. After Madara Uchiha summoned the statue and cultivated Hashirama Senju's DNA into a large flowering tree, Black Zetsu removed White Zetsu and the other victims from inside the husk, leading Madara to believe they were artificial humans created by the statue's chakra and Hashirama's DNA. White Zetsu and other mutated humans were then tasked with intelligence gathering before he and Spiral Pattern Zetsu were entrusted with looking after the basically fixing Obito Uchiha back together. Over time, the duo became friends with the young Uchiha, and with Obito's rehab was near completion, White Zetsu returned to the base and informed Obito that, Kakashi and Hatake and Rin were being attacked by bunch of Anbu shinobi and whatnot, and when the Spiral Pattern Zetsu offered to help Obito by encasing himself around the young Uchiha in order to enable him to leave the cave, White Zetsu served to guide Obito telepathically with the information he received from other Zetsu stationed outside. So meaning that there's a whole bunch of Zetsus, okay? And when they returned to Madara, White Zetsu assured him that no one had seen them and relayed information on what has happened after the arrival of Konoha reinforcements, noting that Obito didn't kill Kakashi, okay? And when Madara was on the verge of death, he imbued Black Zetsu into White Zetsu's right half, believing the former was a manifestation of his will. Zetsu later accompanied Obito to locate Nagato, who had unknowingly been given Madara's Rinnegan as a child, and watched as Obito introduced him using Madara's identity. Okay, and so that's kind of like the beginning. You know what I mean? Kind of things we kind of know when it comes to the character of Zetsu. And we are now going to talk about the abilities. So, abilities-wise, White Zetsu was basically described by Obito as not really being a front-line fighter, and thus never directly participated in battles. However, by using several supporting abilities, he's proved to be of great use of his allies and master. Like I was saying overall, stating in the beginning, ninjutsu. So in addition to functioning as a single entity with Black Zetsu by communicating through thoughts, which is pretty cool if you really think about it, kind of like the, like Ino and her father can do and whatnot. White Zetsu was able to split his body into two, allowing them to act independently if needed. While separated, the two halves could extend roots underground to communicate with each other over long distances, which is pretty freaking crazy. He was able to create and remotely communicate with near-identical clones of himself, which could absorb a person's chakra, which is pretty fucking crazy. With his spore technique, White Zetsu was able to plant these clones on the bodies of others in the form of spores, which are undetectable even to sensory type or Kage-level shinobi. Once activated, these spores would grow into a white mass which surrounded the individuals they formed on and absorbed the chakra while restricting their movements. So meaning that it restricts their fucking movements, okay, and basically is absorbing their chakra, which is ridiculous. It's pretty crazy. The clones could also use the stolen chakra to replenish an ally's chakra supply by attaching themselves to him or her. Obito had White Zetsu attach several of these spores to Sasuke Uchiha in order to monitor and even assist him when necessary, which is during the 5 Kage Summit event. Substitute technique, which is this is an interesting one as well, which is I'm going to kind of go over with the data book statement and basically state, what kind of it was stated within that as well. But for now, I'm just kind of summarizing the techniques and explaining them. Substitute technique, White Zetsu is basically claimed to have the best transformation technique and was able to freely alter his form and chakra signature. Doing so allowed him to become or create a completely indistinguishable substitute of another individual. Even being suited with their tools by manipulating the nature of his chakra, he was able to basically emulate techniques of which is known to him, because White Zetsu is typically weaker than the one he was intimidating. He mainly uses technique through his clones to serve as decoys or for infiltration, and assassination, which is pretty freaking cool. You can catch a lot of people off guard and do some pretty serious damage. And even after suffering tremendous damage or even death, the technique would not cancel until he chose to release it, which is pretty crazy. Despite not being suited for a prolonged battle, White Zetsu has shown considerable skill in basically copying the personalities and battle tactics of his target. It's because of this characteristic that the entire allied shinobi forces were forced to be in constant paranoia and sometimes turn on one another. Though with keen analysis, one could exploit his lack of knowledge on certain subjects. Those who could sense negative emotions could also take advantage of his true intentions, aka Naruto with his KCM1 form. So it's a pretty big deal, the substitute technique. Then you have the nature transformation. White Zetsu is capable of utilizing all 5 basic nature transformations along with the yin and yang release, which is pretty big deal. He can use all 5 nature transformations and yin and yang release. And if you guys don't know what yin and yang release is and nature transformations are, okay, Suikage has incredible videos on that. And overall, I could always make my own YouTube video on that and explaining those. But either way, that's a big deal. Let's put it that way, and that makes him a pretty formidable opponent. Because he was tethered to the flowering tree grown from Hashirama Senju's DNA, White Zetsu's genetic material and chakra were identical to that of the latter's. Like Hashirama, he was able to use wood release, which is also really cool, but on a much weaker scale, though. It wasn't nowhere near the same as Hashirama, but he could still implement and use wood release, which is pretty freaking cool, which we got to see Obito do that with the Zetsu. And we also get to see it, I think, during the war arc as well, and and so on and so forth. And also when he was also kind of doing the same thing to Yamato, which is really cool. So Zetsu's signature technique was Mayfly, which allowed him to merge with the ground to quickly travel to a new location. Though not as quickly as Obito's space-time traveling, this technique was ideal for Zetsu's function as a spy, as it erased its presence and prevented him from being sensed. Which is a really big fucking deal, because, this ability not only allows him to travel basically to any location, okay, but it also erases his presence and prevents him from being sensed. That is insane, okay? Like, think about it. The fact that this guy can literally, it's just crazy. It basically allows him to merge his body with the ground, travel at very high speeds, okay? Even though it's not as fast as Kamui, it's still pretty quick, okay, through a root system, and basically has the ability, to travel underground with his chakra and a network of organic matter, and it's just crazy. He can basically conceal himself, and overall, you can't fucking detect him, even Karen wasn't able to fucking detect him, which is pretty crazy. And mind you, she's a Sentry Ninja, which that was also during the 5 Kage Summit and all that and everything. So overall, like, it's a pretty big fucking deal, that technique. Very impressive, in my opinion. And then other skills that, we've kind of seen, or I'm kind of basically reflecting on due from everything I want to analyze him as a character. Being a mutated human, White Zetsu was able to survive without food or water and did not need to carry out normal human bodily functions. He could, however, quickly devour another individual completely, as he was normally tasked to dispose of dead Akatsuki members or allies that way. Doing so also serves to supplement his own chakra reserves, befitting his role as a spy, while Zetsu was able to put up a warning system allowing him to monitor a vast area. Being almost entirely composed with the cells of Hashirama Senju, White Zetsu had the capacity to heal nearly any wound, which is pretty crazy, even without the use of hand seals. It is because of this that White Zetsu was able to aid his companions by grafting his body parts onto them, should they lose any major portion of their anatomy, which we've seen that plenty of fucking times with Obito. And those aided in this way are also gifted White Zetsu's healing capabilities as well, which is, aka Obito was also an example. So, and then basically you have all the points where we kind of seen him. So it was like Sasuke recovery mission, which is after like the fight with Sasuke and Naruto at the Valley of the End, Kakashi and Pugan to bring Naruto back home. And then as the three began the journey back home from Konoha, Zetsu appears from the ground, having witnessed the whole battle. And later he appeared with the rest of the customer, where they discussed Orochimaru taking Sasuke Uchiha, the capture of Nine Tails, and furthering of their plans. Then you have part 2, which is during the Kazekage's rescue mission, which we kind of get to see him. So it's like during the extraction of the One-Tailed, Zetsu is told by the Akatsuki leader to use his real body to use as a lookout, in which he identifies several enemies such as Guy, Kakashi, and Chio. And then he's sent to dispose the corpses of like these 2 other people. Can't remember their names. After Sasori and Dataro were defeated, Zetsu and Toba were sent to retrieve their rings and dispose of their corpses. However, he was unable to eat Sasori due to him being a puppet, but was amazed to finally see what the real Sasori looked like. Toby found Sasori's ring, wishing, to take it to his place. Black Zetsu thought this was a bad idea, but White Zetsu thought otherwise, noting that Toby was a good person, and yada yada. So, let me, And then the other time we actually get to see Zetsu is during the Akatsuki suppression mission. And it's after Hidan and Kakuzu defeated Yukito. Zetsu appeared to retrieve Yukito and ask if Hidan was finished with his long, ritual. And Zetsu told him that when sad and alone, all one can count on is yourself. Kakuzu disagreed and stated that money is all you can count on. White Zetsu agreed that money was important. However, Black Zetsu stated finding the next one was much more important. And, that's kind of it. Then you have the Itachi pursuit mission, which is after Data's death. Zetsu was sent to recover his body, with White Zetsu wondering what happened to Toby. Black Zetsu mentioned that based on the damage area, he was most likely caught up in Data's explosion. Later, when Pain had encouraged the organization to mourn Data's loss, White Zetsu took it himself to mourn for Toby's loss, while Black Zetsu thought such a notion was ridiculous. Then you have the tale of Jiraiya the Gallant, which that was, during the whole Pain fight and everything. After the Pain fight with Jiraiya, Zetsu revealed himself after watching the whole battle, as Pain announced he was going to capture the Nine Tails. White Zetsu said it would be an interesting battle and wanted to go. However, Black Zetsu had another battle in mind, and they decided to watch Sasuke's battle with Itachi. Okay. And then you have the other point where it's like, I think it was fated battle between brothers, and both halves separated, commented on the battle, with Black Zetsu offering knowledge on various shotgun abilities, which makes sense because Black Zetsu's been around for fucking decades. When Itachi died, Zetsu noticed that Itachi should have not been that weak, believing him to have already been, kind of sick and crippled prior to battle. He later appeared near Toby while he was engaged in combat with the 8-man squad to report to him the result of the fight. Then he led Toby to where Itachi and Sasuke were, where Black Zetsu confirming that Toby has indeed recorded the fight. After a meeting with Taka and Kasame, Toby met Zetsu on the bridge, where they discussed the fact that Itachi, who had been hampering their plans, was dead, and Zetsu lamped basically on the fact that so many Akatsuki members have died. Toby said their deaths were worth it because Sasuke was in his hands now. And then you have the Six Tails Unleashed, to where it's, at least in the anime, not in the manga, Zetsu was presented alongside the other Akatsuki members, where they extracted the Six Tails from the Six Tails Jinchuriki. Then you have Pain's Assault. Zetsu is presented when Akatsuki begins sealing the 8 tails, and when it's revealed that the Jinchuriki fooled Sasuke, replacing himself with a tentacle. White Zetsu flew in his hysterical laughter, which greatly annoyed Black Zetsu. Upon Nagato's death, and Naruto returned to the village crowned as the hero. Zetsu revealed himself basically to have a hidden inside a tree, watching the entire fight between them. Hardly believing Pain to have been defeated, but decided to relay information to Toby. He then returned to Toby and Kasami and reported Nagato's death and betrayal, also mentioning that Konan wouldn't be returning either. Then you have the 5 Kage Summit, which is another point where Zetsu kind of shows up. And he basically finds Toby after, the whole encounter with Taka, revealing that Konoha had already been destroyed and that Danzo had been named the Hokage. He then mentioned to Sasuke that Naruto had defeated Pain and was probably stronger than him. When Taka agreed, to the Kage Summit, Zetsu split in half, and while Zetsu proceeded to lead Sasuke and his team to the Kage Summit, White Zetsu stayed with Taka in the Land of Iron, observing the meeting of the 5 Kage and trying to figure out a way to successfully assassinate Danzo. Basically, after identifying Danzo, White Zetsu managed to slip away from Taka unnoticed, while Zetsu later emerged into the conference room, telling the 5 Kage that Sasuke was somewhere around. After revealing himself, the 4th Kage grabbed the White Zetsu's neck, asked him about the whereabouts, threatened to use the force. Zetsu mockingly replied and said that he would give him a hint, which the Raikage got pissed off and broke his neck. And then, he was presumed to be dead by everyone in the vicinity. And then after Sasuke had been struck by, the 5th Mizukage's Bull Release skilled mist technique, Zetsu's Spore technique, which had been secretly been implanted on everyone in the meeting hall before the Raikage attacked, activated, which is pretty impressive. No one knew that he did this technique. All these 5 Kage are there, and this motherfucker is just doing his Spore technique, okay? And basically, he lynched some of the Mizukage's chakra while binding the samurai guards, Mifune and Inoki and everyone else. One of the spores then jumped onto Sasuke and gave him the absorbed chakra, allowing him to use an arm of Susanoo to escape from the Mizukage. And then the spores were later successfully neutralized by everyone present at the time of their release. And that was basically that. And then you have when, where Zetsu prepares to fight Team 7. And it's after Naruto and Sasuke clash, the aftermath of which sends Sasuke basically hurling towards a wall. A clone of White Zetsu appears and warps himself around Sasuke to cushion the blow, revealing that Toby had told him to keep an eye on Sasuke. The clone contracts the real White Zetsu, Toby's arrival, and then they get there. Zetsu's clone prepares to fight and capture Naruto, created several more copies of himself before he can engage in combat. However, Toby tells him not that he wasn't a frontline fighter, and instead gives him the task of checking up on Kasame and rejoining with Black Zetsu. Which is pretty interesting because this is just White Zetsu, and this man was ready to throw hands with fucking Naruto, who has access to Sage Mode. And he was just starting to split, copies of himself and ready to just fight the guy, So, which is really interesting. And that's kind of that. And then White Zetsu and Black Zetsu meet up at the site of Killer Bee, and Kasame's battle, only to reveal that Kasame's decapitated body was actually one of the White Zetsu's shape-shifting clones. It is then revealed that Kasame, by having the clone fake his death, was then able to infiltrate while inside Samahara and being carried on the back by Killer Bee, who's attempting to use it as his own weapon. Black Zetsu then stated that it was their feeding time and that they should emerge once again. So that's basically that. Then we get to the 4th Shinobi World War. Okay. And in the anime, Zetsu basically sees off Toby before he made his journey to, retrieve Nagato's Rinnegan. Upon Toby's acquisition of the Rinnegan, Zetsu informed him that the scroll with the information Kasame sent through his messenger shark had arrived, also noting that everything seemed to be going into their favor. Zetsu later is helping Toby, or better yet, aka Obito, as he shows Kabuto around the mountain's graveyard, but questions if Obito should really trust him. And then, you have the whole confrontation of the 4th Shinobi World War, and he's basically supervising Sasuke's recovery. Black Zetsu told him to be patient when asking if his bandages could be removed, with White Zetsu remarking that when he did regain his sight, it would be a different world, that things were getting really fun as the 4th Shinobi World War commenced. Black Zetsu separates from White Zetsu to carry out his assigned tasks, leaving White Zetsu to make sure Kabuto could not abduct Sasuke during the confusion of the war, which is really interesting because they basically left White Zetsu, out of all people, to make sure that Kabuto does not abduct Sasuke or do anything fishy. So they believe that White Zetsu would be capable of fighting against Sage Mode Kabuto with his Edo summonings. That's also really interesting. Okay. And basically, White Zetsu spores are also placed on Kabuto's body to help monitor him as well, to where he can basically monitor and see everything he's doing at all times. After being alerted about Naruto and Killer Bee escaping the island, White Zetsu reported this to Obito, also questioning if they need to capture, the other ninja down there. Upon being that they didn't matter, Zetsu basically told Black Zetsu was fighting the Mizukage for nothing, to where Obito responded that by stalling the Mizukage and her allies, they were effectively splitting up her forces. White Zetsu asked about what Toby was going to do, which he revealed he was going to join the battle by stealing the substitute. Okay. And then you have, the climax for the 4th Shinobi War. And it's on the 2nd day of the war. White Zetsu was used as a test subject for Sasuke's new eyes and impaled by a blade formed from the black flames of Amaterasu, which was wielded by, the Susanoo and basically that, which was White Zetsu's death. That's just for White Zetsu. That's not even for Black Zetsu. So, we were doing like a mix of both characters technically, but, so now... So then we have Black Zetsu, which is literally the physical manifestation of Kaguya's will. Having been created to secure its creator's revival, it secretly instigated many events that shaped the shinobi world, during which it posed as Madara Uchiha's manifested will, leading to it being partnered with White Zetsu to become half of the Akatsuki members known simply as Zetsu. Okay. Nature types, it can use wood release, earth release, water release, fire release, wind release, lightning release, yin and yang as well. Can absorb chakra, which is one of its unique traits. Alright, anyways, and then we're going to do some background knowledge of Black Zetsu. So Black Zetsu was created basically by Kaguya shortly before she was sealed as a 10 tails by her twin sons, Hagoromo and, the other guy, I can't remember his name. In the anime, Black Zetsu would approach Indra alone periodically, goading him with praise and curiosity towards Indra's true potential, even going so far as to say he could rival, if not surpass, the Sage of Six Paths himself. When Hagoromo later named his younger son Ashura as the new leader of Ninshu, Black Zetsu tempted Hagoromo's elder son Indra to go to war with his younger brother. It decided that the Indra's descendants, the Uchiha, would be the main cast of the shinobi history it was creating, and also modified Hagoromo's tablet to claim that, among other things, the infinite Tsukuyomi would be the Uchiha's salvation. Over the centuries, and yes, we're saying centuries, okay, it manipulated the two brothers' reincarnations in an attempt to get one to awaken the Rinnegan, and also recorded many events for Kaguya, including Madara and Hashirama Senju's last fight at the Valley of the End, sometime between Madara's death and his battle with Hashirama, and the time-delayed Izanagi Madara used to resurrect himself. And Black Zetsu found out where Madara's body was hidden, and hid himself inside Madara's body. When Madara had seemingly created White Zetsu and its clone siblings, it was actually Black Zetsu pulling the transformed humans from Kaguya's infinite Tsukuyomi out of the demonic statue of the Outer Path, merging them with the essence of Hashirama's plant clone Madara created to give them a diluted wood release. When Madara was on the verge of death, he believed he had created Black Zetsu by imbuing his will into half of the White Zetsu, and that the complete Zetsu was partially his clone. In reality, it was Black Zetsu coming out of Madara's body after hiding inside of his body during his death. Zetsu later accompanied Obito Uchiha to locate Nagato, who had unknowingly been given Madara's Rinnegan as a child, and watches Obito introduce himself as Madara Uchiha. So, some pretty interesting facts right there. And other than that, we would go into abilities. So, fitting, its parasitic nature, okay, I guess you can say, Black Zetsu has shown many abilities that ultimately aided in its deceiving and manipulating others for centuries, all while remaining hidden and anonymous with the powers at its disposal and tactical capabilities in combination with Kaguya's. The two were able to easily fend off both Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke for a time. Despite the two being aided by their respective enhancements and help from their allies, it could also use all 5 basic nature transformations in Yin and Yang release, which is pretty impressive. So unlike a normal body, it could survive being bisected and not age for over thousands of years. Being a product of Kage's will, Black Zetsu itself is also able to manifest its will to gain influence over others, either by suddenly manipulating their thoughts or forcefully manipulating their bodies by attaching himself to them. Which is pretty insane. So meaning that he can literally manifest its will to gain influence over others by manipulating their thoughts or forcefully manipulating their bodies by attaching himself to them. And he can also be hidden inside your body without you even knowing, which is insane, by the way. He was able to render Madara as a 10-tailed Jinchuriki completely powerless to resist his influence by impaling him through the chest with Obito's left hand. Black Zetsu over time has used his ability to stay hidden while manipulating many of Ashura and Indra's reincarnations, including Indra himself. Fitting its malleable psychology, Black Zetsu has shown the ability to alter its form and shape, being able to form itself into a humanoid shape or stretch into greater lengths, which is really interesting. And then, used throughout the centuries, Black Zetsu is able to record the events it observes, as well as show these recordings to others by merging with them. So he can even, like, relay and basically teach you all kinds of shit just by merging with you. It's fucking insane. It's kind of like some fucking Venom type, like, symbiote type shit from Marvel. By attaching himself to others, Black Zetsu is able to control the target's body and use their abilities, Kenkai, or as of its own if they're in a weakened state. So that's also really cool. So by attaching himself to others, he's able to control the target's body and use their abilities. Okay. If they're in a weakened state, which is pretty cool. They have to be in a weakened state at least, but, you know, that's pretty interesting. Black Zetsu melding with someone also has the effect of sustaining their life, allowing them to temporarily survive such things as using a sacrificial technique or having a tailed beast extracted from them. However, should the target regain control of their body, they can prevent Black Zetsu from detaching itself, thus using this trait against it. So kind of like a double-edged sword. Ninjutsu, being a sensor, it could sense individuals many kilometers away. So he can fucking sense you wherever you're at and all kinds of shit. He can distinguish between distinct chakra signatures, being able to locate Ashura and Indra's reincarnations. While attached to Kage's arm, it could produce bones. So he has to be attached to Kage's arm, but it can produce bones which turn the targets to ash, as well as open portals to fire these bones through. So even though for that technique he would need Kage, it's still cool to notice and mention. In his original form, it has shown the ability to phase and travel through its surroundings. Black Zetsu is also able to absorb and distribute chakra through physical contact. And in the anime, keeping with his sneaky nature, Black Zetsu could conceal himself by blending in with the environment. It was also able to manipulate a giant boar through unknown means and similarly strengthen it, as noticed by Ashura when the boar is not acting normal. So it's an anime moment. But anyways, wood release, which this is what's interesting. Black Zetsu can also use wood release. To where, while possessing White Zetsu's body mass, Black Zetsu has access to Hashirama's cellular material, allowing it to utilize Hashirama's wood release on a much weaker scale. Black Zetsu accomplishes by transforming its white body mass and plant-like extensions into roots during battle. It has been seen to have high amount of proficiency with wood release, holding its own against Mei, a clone of Naruto, okay, which, mind you, this clone of Naruto is in KCM1, which is very impressive, okay, and Chojio and the rest of the protection squad with it. That's a pretty big fucking deal, okay? It's a pretty big feat. So he's fighting against KCM1 Naruto, against Akage, Mei, and Chojio and other people at the same time, and he's dealing with all of them all at once. KCM1 Naruto, mind you. Even though it is a shadow clone, that's still very impressive, because KCM1 Naruto is no fucking joke. While Black Zetsu was attached to White Zetsu, their signature technique was Mayfly, which allowed them to merge with the ground, which we already kind of talked about this with White Zetsu, to quickly travel to a new location, though not as quickly as Obito's space-time, which we also already stated. This technique was ideal for Zetsu to function as a spy, erase its presence, prevent them from being sensed, and basically, you know, communicating through thoughts. Zetsu's two halves have been split apart, yada yada, kind of similar to what White Zetsu can do. Okay. And what's really interesting is, you know, this is also like an interaction he had with Obito, an attempt to assure Madara's revival. Better get the outer path technique. Black Zetsu took possession of Obito, forced him to use the technique specifically for the purpose, In a later attempt to aid Madara in retrieving his left eye from Obito, Black Zetsu was able to steal possession of the latter's Rinnegan while almost completely removing itself from Obito's body. When Black Zetsu was finally able to return the Rinnegan back to Madara, he received Obito's original left eye in exchange. Wielding both of Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan, Black Zetsu was able to utilize the left eye's Kamui to travel to and from an alternate dimension while bringing another person with it. Upon detaching himself from Obito, Black Zetsu no longer had access to the form of Mangekyo Sharingan. So, which is interesting. So he can even control your dojutsu or your abilities and basically manipulate you, which is really ridiculous. Then for his intelligence, we all should know he's obviously going to be a very, very fucking intelligent character. You're talking about a creature that has been alive for fucking decades, okay? Influencing and manipulating many, people and deceptive individuals throughout history, including Indra, Madara, Obito, Nagato, Kabuto, and countless amount of others. Black Zetsu's proved himself to be a highly deceptive and cunning individual. In order to further his plan to revive its creator, Kaguya, that's his ultimate endgame, has influenced many events to seek and manipulate those most useful to it, with the goal of manifesting a Rinnegan in one of its pawns. Black Zetsu even orchestrated the Chia and Senju clan's extensive rivalry in order to set the Eye of the Moon plan in motion. Black Zetsu rewrote Hagoromo's stone tablet so that Madara would find it and become an unknown pawn. To further gain Madara's trust, Black Zetsu also tricked him into thinking that it was an extension of the former's will, basically, undying loyalty towards Madara himself. Additionally, orchestrating Akatsuki's goal to capture the Tail Beast and Kabuto's alliance with Obito, Black Zetsu claimed that the entire Fourth Shinobi World War went all according to his design. In fact, it believes that because it had such a substantial influence over the events that have been taking place throughout the history of Shinobi, all of it essentially his tale of reviving Kaguya. Having lived for centuries due to the fact that it was created at the beginning of Shinobi time, Black Zetsu has amassed more information about the Shinobi world than almost any other individual, period. In battle and alongside its creator, Kaguya, Black Zetsu has shown to be an adept technician who can, analyze its opponents, basically suggest appropriate countermeasures to their tactics, which Kaguya complies with and carries out. While attached to, he can also be able to do with that one move that I stated before, and its ability to create rifts in space in unison in an attempt to intercept Naruto and Sasuke's attempt to seal the former. But other than that, the only thing I can really say, that also I think, so through unknown means, Black Zetsu was able to manipulate the demonic statue of the outer path and release the white Zetsu trapped within it. Additionally, Black Zetsu has proven strong enough to harm and impale Madara Uchiha despite his durability and considerable regeneration powers being greatly enhanced as the Ten Tails Shinjutsu, which is also very impressive. And then this is basically, it's kind of similar, where we've kind of seen him in part 1 with the recovery mission, which I stated before, and then, with part 2, Kazekage, rescue mission, and that's kind of like the whole thing and whatnot. And then you have the Akatsuki suppression mission as well, which is kind of similar with the hit-on and all that, and the whole conversation between them. And it's basically the same exact points, that he was kind of involved in. This is what is really pretty interesting about Black Zetsu, of how, he's actually a pretty big deal. So, we're going to go to the point where, basically he's continuing, he basically pulls up on Mei, KCM1 Naruto, okay, and Mei's companion, I can't remember his name, and some other ninja, and he's basically observes the arrival of Naruto's KCM clone, and basically who then proceeded to crash into a tree beside him. Growing roots from a portion of his body while fighting, he used them to trip Naruto and avoid his rising Shuriken, only to be bisected from behind by a large blade of Chojuro. That's what his name was, and then basically he was kind of just still, even though he got cut and everything, he was still feeling them all out, fighting and everything. And then he kind of retreated because Madara ordered him to keep watching Obito after his playing with the 5 Kages done, and etc. and yada yada. And then you have the birth of the Ten Tails Shinjutsu. So when Obito was weakened, he basically subdued Obito, and went all over his body and forced him to use the rebirth jutsu for Madara to bring him back to life. And then he was basically keeping Minato and Kakashi at bay, and basically, they're both sides were kind of at a stalemate. And while that was going on, then Black Zetsu attempt, to take the left Rinnegan The left Rinnegan, Obito managing to resist Black Zetsu's control of his hand, told Kakashi to destroy the Rinnegan. Black Zetsu, realizing that the summoning the demonic statue meant, informed his enemies that Madara had regained his right Rinnegan. Okay. And then, standing to face Minato and Kakashi in battle, Zetsu complained about the duo's stubbornness before Gar arrived along with Sakura and a dying Naruto to the location. Black Zetsu managed to steal Kuroma's yin half when Minato tried to transfer it to his son, thus becoming his Jinchuriki. Soon afterwards, Zetsu was joined by Madara, who complained about having to come all the way there, as Black Zetsu attempted to turn to Madara, bringing with him Yin Kurama, my bad, and Madara's missing eye. Obito overpowered him, keeping him merged to his body, and he spoke with, and attacked the legend as Kakashi, and now Obito were determined to save Naruto. The two used their respective Kamui to send Naruto into the dimension, and soon afterwards, Obito as well, under watch of, Sakura, Obito proceeds to transfer the Yin Kurama into Naruto. And then later, after Madara managed to teleport himself using Obito's original Sharingan, which he took from Kakashi, he overpowered Obito and it reclaimed his Rinnegan, allowing Black Zetsu to regain control of Obito's body. And Madara had also implanted Obito's original Sharingan back to his body in order for Black Zetsu to use its power. And then Madara began casting the Infinite Tsukiyomi, and Black Zetsu was unaffected by the Genjutsu and all that, and etc. And then you have, when he basically stabbed Madara in his fucking back. And during the Infinite Tsukiyomi, Black Zetsu noted that the moonlight could not shine through Sasuke Susanoo due to his Rinnegan. After the Genjutsu ended, Madara managed to confront Team 7 and prepare to eliminate them, but was stabbed from behind by Black Zetsu, who demolished a confused and shocked Madara for believing that he was any different than Obito and that he himself cannot be used. After a distraught and also furious Madara stated that Black Zetsu was supposed to be his will, he declared that he is, in reality, the will of Kaguya. Following this declaration of Black Zetsu proceeded to spread all over Madara's body as the latter screamed in anguish, while forcing the chakra of the people caught in the Infinite Tsukiyomi out from the ground and having Madara absorbed it, turning him into a big freaking balloon. And when it was completely covered by Black Zetsu, Madara's body shrunk, changed, bringing him forth to revive Kaguya in his place. So, and then, the two incarnations of Black Zetsu once again re-emerged to absorb Naruto and Sasuke's chakra. While attached to their bodies, Black Zetsu shows and explains to them what he did to ensure Kaguya was revived. After he's completed, he attempts to return to Kaguya, but Naruto and Sasuke manage to regain control of their bodies and rip Black Zetsu off themselves, preventing him from absorbing any more chakra. He notes that Naruto and Sasuke are too rebellious, and that they can't do anything to Kaguya. And then, nonetheless, the duo attack Kaguya, proved to be surprisingly effective in their coordinated strikes. It is then when Black Zetsu suggests that Kaguya, that he separate the two in order to pick them off one by one. And then, it kind of goes from there. And that's basically about it when it comes to Zetsu, guys. So overall, we're kind of going to do a little recap real quick, about Zetsu overall. Because at the end of the day, now we can really determine how powerful is Zetsu. Okay, where would he even place in the Akatsuki? And overall as well, fucking, at the end of the day, how strong is he? Is he the weakest? Is he the strongest? Whatever. And we're kind of going to talk about that right now. So, something that's interesting that I do really want to bring up, okay, is we're going to do a little recap of basically of how powerful this guy is, because he's no fucking joke. Okay. So there's one data book statement to where it basically states where, enveloped by his uncanny appearance, he goes deep into the ground to record every sound. Zetsu has the ability to put up a warning system over a vast area. It is not known whether this is ninjutsu or is an individual skill. And his outer shell is basically it's a carnivorous plant, and he has two distinct personalities which converse with each other. Everything about Zetsu is unusual, and even among the Akatsuki is especially Ghastly, he's as witness to major battles in the shinobi world. After he meets Madara, the mastermind behind the Akatsuki, is given the duty of recording all battles. Despite questioning Madara in detail about his motives, Zetsu continues to head to the battlefield merely because it satisfies his curiosity. And that's basically that. So that's kind of like a little bit more of like some background info from the data book statement from one that we have. And then the next thing, this is going to be basically about one of his, jutsu that he can do. So basically it's called the transitionary jutsu, gliding along the ground at a root level. Unique to Zetsu, this jutsu allows him to merge his body with plants in the ground to travel at high speed. By charging, his plant-like outer shell with chakra, it becomes possible to merge with the ground. This makes it possible for him to travel anywhere at high speed using an organic network of plant roots and water veins that exist in the ground. While the jutsu is in effect, his presence is completely concealed, and no one, no matter who it is able to detect Zetsu's presence. Zetsu hides under the trees and sand. He uses his jutsu to conceal his presence while watching battles and so on and so forth, which is ridiculous, okay? Remind you. So there's that technique. Then you have the spore technique that he can do, which this is based from the data book statement. It's a ninjutsu that steals the opponent's liberty, making the spores grow, which has been attached to them while they were not aware. The stuck spores grows all of a sudden, plundering the opponent's chakra. It coils around them in the shape of a white zetsu that makes it grow. Since the spore is really small, even the 5 Kage hadn't noticed it. And moreover, it can coil around other people and basically encase them, immobilizing them, and absorbing their chakra. And he can also transfer the chakra if he wants to, which is pretty freaking crazy. Okay. And then other than that, another thing that's really pretty interesting about Zetsu is he also, knowing he has access to wood style, such as the wood human technique, ninjutsu, kenka kenkai use if he's like controlling someone for offense, defense, so on and so forth. And he can use the wood human technique, which this ninjutsu is the greatest, especially of the goddess Shinobi, aka Hashirama. And it provides chakra for wood release to grow faster and then give the shapes of a wooden humanoid, wood human, which is what Hashirama did against the battle against Madara, which is able to balance against, the majestic nine tails, okay, like that big ass wood, transformation that he did. Zetsu can also do it as well. Obviously, it wouldn't be nowhere near as strong as Hashirama's, but it's still pretty fucking powerful to where when it was used in the 4th Great Ninja World, he's basically contesting and keeping everyone at bay. There was freaking Hiruzen, the entire Shinobi Alliance, along with Hiruzen, you name it, no one could basically get past him, and he was just kind of fucking with all of them and trolling them. So, which is pretty freaking impressive in my opinion. And mind you, that this is a jutsu you're talking about that was basically able to grab and redirect a tail beast bomb with one hand, and it's just absolutely ridiculously powerful, and it was able to obliterate the majestic, Susanoo as well. So Zetsu has access to that, can also use wood style, which is clearly shown by Black Zetsu. And, he's just, overall, Zetsu is just a very unique individual. He's basically an all-around capable fighter. Many capabilities, you know what I mean? And that's what makes him very, very fucking dangerous. And at the end of the day, he can control your body, okay? Fuck with you. He can be inside of your body without you even knowing. He can be undetected by just traveling underground and you cannot sense his presence or anything, okay? He can use all 5 basic nature transformations in yin and yang release, okay, which is absolutely ridiculous, okay? And overall, with his unique body and all that as well, able to benefit, to gain influence over others by either manipulating their thoughts or forcefully manipulating their bodies, okay? He was able to render Madara's Tensho Jinchuriki completely powerless to resist his influence by impaling him through the chest, okay? Has the ability to stay hidden, manipulating many reincarnations of either Indra or Ashura, aka, Madara, Hashirama, and eventually, Obito, and etc. And, he's able to basically alter his form and shape, being able to form itself into a humanoid shape or strength to great lengths. And he's basically recorded all events and observes basically everything from beginning of time of, humans becoming shinobi, okay? And he's, and if he's also like can control your abilities, Genkai and all that and everything by attaching himself and whatnot. And and then I have stated this before, but Black Zetsu is also able to absorb and distribute chakra through physical contact as well. So that's something, pretty ridiculous. Being able to absorb chakra, is a pretty big fucking deal. Okay, I've already stated this, would release and whatnot. And he was capable of fighting against Casey and Naruto and all these other people, etc. And overall, was able to merge underground, which I already talked about, which is the Mayfly technique that he has and all that. And then other than that, combining with his intelligence, at the end of the day, this guy is just a ridiculously dangerous, capable ninja. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, overall, my thoughts on how strong Zetsu is, he's a very, very strong fucking guy. You know what I mean? Like, now really, like, if I could actually go back to my Akatsuki ranking video, I actually probably would have put him either at the highest or at a certain level. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, this motherfucker can basically do anything. You know what I mean? He's ridiculous. So, he's very, very powerful. Okay? He's able to contend with 6 path level characters, damage those level of characters. Okay? And, he can travel anywhere he wants to on, like, almost in the same lengths as Kamui. Okay? Can be undetected when he does that. Access to wood style. Access to that big-ass wood transformation, okay, that he can also do. Can use yin and yang, all 5 natures, okay? And then have a fucking spore technique that literally, that you can't even realize that it's even there or whatever, and basically just starts, like, immobilizing you and absorbing your fucking chakra, okay? And other than that, fucking, he's just ridiculous. Like, he can even go inside of your body without being detected, or he can fucking control you, and you literally have to fight back and so on and so forth, and he can even, like, make you use your abilities or dojutsu and shit like that. So, like, imagine that, like, he just fucking goes over your body and is just making you, like, spam ninjutsu and chakra to the point where you just get exhausted and you're just out of stamina and chakra and you're just dead. Like, that's just one win con he could do. Like, overall, he's basically like Venom, similar to him, you know what I mean, like in the Marvel Universe, a symbiote, and he's pretty fucking strong. Like, he's no joke. So, at the end of the day, if I really had to rank him in the Akatsuki, okay, you know what I mean? Like, I would actually say he would be at the top, okay? And I would actually really, like, agree with that. Now, the only character I feel like, would be interesting for him would be against, like, the Paths of Pains and whatnot. You know what I mean? But, like, and the reason why is because the Paths of Pains are basically just corpses, so even if he is able to, like, one-shot them by, piercing through them or whatever, or maybe controlling one of the bodies, or, or using that big-ass wood style, whatever, this and that, or just kind of giving them a run for their money and just fighting them, okay? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, cool, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's just really weird because it's not really Nagato, it's just the Paths of Pains. So, I don't know, I feel like if it's the Paths of Pains kind of having to fight against Black Zetsu and whatnot, and, obviously White Zetsu, that, like, it would just be a very weird battle, okay? And I don't really see either one coming on top, and I feel like, if anything, Zetsu would just kind of travel everywhere until he finds Nagato and just deal with him. But if they were just to actually fight and it were to go down, the only way I could really see Zetsu being able to, like, deal with the Paths of Pains is, kind of doing, like, that Spore Jutsu to where it kind of immobilizes and absorbing, like, their chakra, and then, him going underground and then being undetected and then kind of appearing and either going, piercing them from behind, you know what I mean? or fucking controlling one of their, or being inside one of their bodies without them even realizing. You know what I mean? And then like if he retreated, then they go back to fucking Nagato, and he's like, oh, here you are, and then just deals with him. So like overall, if Zetsu was to kind of have to fight against any Akatsuki member, I just don't see really a way for any of them to really be able to beat him or do anything. That's just my opinion, though. Because, like, let's say if he was even fight against Obito. Yeah, Obito can do fucking Kamui and whatnot and etc. But what is Obito going to do to against someone that he can't even detect or see and know where he's at, and then just get caught off guard and hit from behind or whatever, similar to what Minato did to him, or Konan and so on and so forth. Like, it's a pretty big fucking deal. And then not only that, he can do the Spore Jutsu, which, at the end of the day, Obito is not immune to his fucking Spore Jutsu. It's literally microscopic and everything and whatnot, to where it's going to affect him, and that's going to, whatnot. And then I guess you could say, Obito could probably maybe Kamui through it and whatnot. But either way, like, all it takes is for Zetsu to just, use wood style, fight, whatever, do things, disappear. Obito's like, what the hell? His presence completely gone. And then bam, get one shot in the back, like, a.k.a. it happened to Madara, So, I don't know. It's interesting because at the end of the day, like, he's pretty fucking powerful. I truly feel like Zetsu could probably be able to beat anyone in the Akatsuki if he really came down to it. I just don't see how anyone could really be able to deal with him with his abilities. You know what I mean? He can basically travel anywhere. He can regenerate. He can't be killed. Like, he can control your body. He can be inside your body without knowing. He can just come out of nowhere and pierce you from fucking behind. Okay, like, able to contend against 6 pass level characters, even fighting against KCM1 Naruto and all that, and etc. Like, he's no fucking joke. So, at the end of the day, this video is already as long as it is, okay? He's pretty fucking powerful, okay? And I actually would put him at the top. And the only reason why I would say that is mainly due to the fact of, at the end of the day, like, how do you fight something that literally can just travel wherever, you can't detect it, and then has, like, hacks-based abilities that you really can't avoid or dodge? You know what I mean? He's just such a weird freaking character. So, overall, that's kind of my opinion on him. You know what I mean? Like, you could maybe try to argue, the passive pains, maybe trying to figure out a way to fight him or deal with him, or maybe even Obito. But at the end of the day, I just don't see how they could really pull that off. Like, you're fighting against something that can heal anything, okay, fucking, and literally, like, cannot be, killed, can travel anywhere it wants, cannot be detected, and any of its attacks and moves basically can affect you. Like, it's just not fucking fair, dude. So, overall, that's kind of where I stand with Zetsu. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I'll make sure to put some timestamps for this video as well. This way, you guys, if you guys don't want to really hear all the background information and whatnot and etc., then you can kind of just hear the conclusion of the video of, how powerful Zetsu is and where he stands in the Akatsuki ranking-wise. Better than that, that's basically it, guys. From me doing all my homework and researching him and whatnot, he's no fucking joke. Like, this guy is a pretty big freaking deal. And that's kind of where I'll just put him at that. So, but yeah, that's going to be it, guys. And as always, make sure to leave a like. Comment your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think I'm capping on him being the most powerful Akatsuki member. You know what I mean? And if he should be all the way in the bottom or the middle or the top. Let me know what you guys think. And other than that, that'll kind of freaking do it, and subscribe for more content. Subscribe if you guys are a fan of Naruto especially. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.